square and the triangle ones here.
I can't even remember what we used to say anymore.
Okay, hi everyone. My name's Pedro, this is Catherine and Jonathan, and we're here to share with you our...
Kate.
Oh, sorry, Kate. Okay, hi everyone. My name's Pedro, this is Kate and Jonathan, and we're going to be sharing with you one of our AllilON Raws. Subject today, what are we discussing?
Shape.
Shape.
The common shape terminology of shapes that have been used.
The circle,
The square. And the triangle.
So, which way shall I put it though? Shall I put it that way because it's getting longer towards the front?
Masculine or
Shall I put it-
feminine?
I'm not sure which one. Which one? Shall I
Point at the top.
point at the top?
So, obviously, let's talk about our history. Yeah. So, at what point in your career did you start to use circle, square, and triangle?
Day one.
Day one.
Yeah. Well, no, not day one for me. I was 22, I think.
Yeah.
So 13 years ago.
Okay.
I didn't really know or
You just
hear
used to
much.
pick it up and cut it.
I was just- I'd seen it and heard it by watching the DVDs.
Mhm. If you can take yourself back to when you learnt it, did it make sense at that time?
Well, I didn't really think about it, I suppose. You just got told something and you believed what you were
Yeah.
told, and I just followed a certain way of thinking and cutting hair.
Because I think because I didn't know any different, it was like, right, take a vertical section, cut it square.
Yeah. And
Okay,
it was
that's
like,
what
okay,
that,
this means
that's what that looks
square.
like.
Yeah.
That's what square must look like. When you pull it out horizontally, look, it should be a square line. Okay, well, it's a square line.
So, at what point did we find that there was grey?
I mean, I remember working in the salon after I come out of staff training, and I was just picking the hair up and I was cutting it, but I didn't really have an understanding of what the shapes were when I was cutting them. That's probably apparent in my training.
It's like and most hairdressers can relate to cutting hair and not being conscious or in control of
When
what they're
did
doing.
it start? So I would only say again, probably about 5 or 6 years ago,
Yeah.
when I started teaching
Yeah.
Yeah.
at the beginning of my teaching.
Because as a teacher, you're communicating something that you want to have a true understanding.
But also when you're watching people, you notice so many more things than obviously when you're cutting hair yourself.
Yeah. I remember it was like I'm going to do a round or circular cutting line, and I was thinking, yeah, but you're going round like that, but it's getting longer at the top.
So for us, it was when we started to look more at the hair that was left on the head than the hair that was hitting
Okay,
the floor.
let's talk
Like,
about that.
Not focusing so much on what we're cutting on at our fingers, for example.
So, for
focusing
example,
on the length
on
that we're leaving
this
the head.
diagram, like you just said, if we focus on the outside, then that would be very square.
Square.
Yeah. But if you focused on the inside,
What's happening to those lengths? Yeah. What's the result of this square line that we're cutting?
so we can see obviously there's greater lengths
On the
on
outside.
the outside than there is on the inside. So, going back to the beginning of your career, you would have called this a square cutting line.
I don't even think I would have called it a square cutting line.
That was too advanced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even speak about cutting lines.
Yeah.
I just spoke about it was for me it was
Square
it was
shape.
square over direction.
Square over direction.
That's what the words were. And obviously we're going to cover over direction in the future and the next videos. But for me, it was like, right, okay, you're going to do a square over direction, which will get longer towards the front. You're going to pull it back square, and the number system or what was called was it's going to be back to previous.
Yeah.
So these were all the kind of
Yeah.
terminologies.
I remember in the beginning of my career when I used to question the back to the previous, because it never really made sense to me that it would create that. Because I was always, back to previous was almost like a little bit of a lazy way of describing where you're going to direct the hair to. Because
Damn it,
Huh?
lazy way.
yeah, because it's kind of like it's easy as a teacher to say, yeah, take everything back to the previous. You
Yeah.
create a square shape. Well, what about the surface that you're working on? You know, this area of the head which is a lot flatter. if you start directing the hair back to the previous there, you're gonna gain more length, and then when the head starts to move away and you're back to the previous, you're not really gonna create that.
So gaining length would have been triangular. Because for me, that would have been like, right, okay.
Yeah.
Because it
A
hasn't.
consistent increase in length is
What makes it
triangle.
square is that because it should have a corner in it. No?
If you want to think about it.
If you want to think about
the
literally.
outside hairdressing language,
Like
a square has corners.
Yeah,
corner.
because what's the difference of this straight line being square or the straight line being an element of the triangular cutting line?
So these are the contradictory grey areas that we were kind of...
So we was also, a lot of you probably out there heard the terminology of expanded shape, something that we got taught right at the beginning. Johnny was massive on that for me, when I was trying to visualise my shape.
So from that being square, it went to...
When it went to triangle because of the lengths increasing towards the front hairline.
Yeah, so if we visualise everything coming out
from its base,
it would be shorter there and longer through the sides, and therefore it would be in the family of triangle.
Hang on a minute, I'm using the square over direction, but that square over direction is creating a triangular expanded shape, and it was just like, oh my.
Yeah, so you evolved from that to the next phase, which would be more focused on the expanded shape, which created a contradiction between shapes.
Yeah, because it was sort of like, okay, well, what I need you to do is, I'd have a teaching scenario, and I'd be like, right, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to do square over direction, but hang on, but it's getting longer towards the front, isn't that not triangular? Because it says in the lecture that anything that's increasing in length horizontally or vertically or whatever was a triangle. Anything that was shorter at the back, longer at the front was a triangle. Anything was shorter. And this is another one that some of us think that if it's increasing in length to the back, it's still circular. I mean, for me, it was like if you started at the front and you pulled everything to the front and it got longer to the back, it'd be a triangle again. But that was the way that, again, it evolved through. And it's the same with...
So talk to us about this diagram. You wanted to share with the guys your thoughts on the circle, because we've touched on square and triangle.
Well, I think the common denominator is that we started to focus what was happening more on the inside, because we would think, okay, well, it's really, if you strip everything back, and it's the direction that we're moving forward to, is concentrating on the lengths. That's right.
That's remaining.
Yeah. Because it's the length that would even still make it a shape. And again, we're happy for everyone to still use the word shapes, circles, squares, triangles, if that's the direction that you want to go in. But before the circle, the square, the triangle, it has to be some lengths. So we're now focused on the lengths.
So, I mean, my career goes back beyond that, but we didn't use any shape.
Didn't you?
We didn't use these to describe. I've been cutting hair for 24 years.
So what did you use to describe?
1920.
No, a circle, square, and triangle wasn't in play. It was just graduation, layers,
and lines.
And no, one length.
Oh, was it?
Oh,
One
yeah,
length?
yeah.
One length. We'll have a debate about that later on.
Yeah, so this doesn't really exist. So talk to us about this, the round in relationship to what's remaining.
I mean, for anyone, obviously, it's taken a primary shape course in the past. We had a colour code system. So this was the circle, the square, the triangle, with these colours. So, and then it was kind of like, okay, when we started focusing more on what was going on in the inside here, it was kind of like, okay, what makes it a circle? So if I was to say in the old language, the circle, it was because we had a consistent length, or because the silhouette was circular. Would you agree?
Yeah.
What would make it to you? Is it different to you?
Well, when I
What was circle?
Yeah.
It was the lengths or the silhouette?
It wasn't the lengths, no, it was the silhouette.
So it was what it looked like, what you were cutting in your fingers?
Yeah, on the outside of the shape.
Yeah. And then as we went onto the inside of the shape, so it was kind of like, right, okay, let's start thinking about the lengths. For me, straight away, it was like, right, okay, the detail of it. So head shape. Well, the head shape is not perfect. It's so imperfect.
And it's different on everyone.
It's different on everyone. So how can something that is just looks so easy on a piece of paper just be completely circular? So if we go to lengths, I was like, right, okay, well, what happens if on different places of the world the head is completely different? So let's say it flattens off a lot more through the crown. Well, then automatically we've now increased in length from here to what we have done here or here.
So it's no longer consistent inside
Yeah.
the shape.
So now inside of that silhouette, we've now got differences in length, and that's a minor because it's happening all over the head, not just there. It's happening.
Do you not think that's a little bit too OCD?
It depends how you want to look at it. Depends how you want to look at it. Because for me, I was very visual, and we go into things massively in depth, don't we? We wouldn't be pushing the boundaries in.
But there may be people out there that are thinking we're still a circle, we're still in the circle
but
of the family.
It depends what you consider is circular shape, square shape and triangular shape. To us, we no longer consider this. What we're focusing on, the outside, is what we used to focus on, and now we're choosing not to focus on that and just focus on the lengths that we're keeping on the head. So that's why, for us, we would.
All right. Well, let's go down that road. As in, what you're saying is that to some people that still looks like a circle. Well, let's just say I did this. And I just gently increased in length even more towards the front.
So there'll be an argument to say that is that triangle or is that circle?
Yeah, I mean, because
and there might be an argument to say that is that square at the front, because some people would describe that as being a corner.
yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, okay, well, that still can look very circular. Do you know what I mean? So when you're cutting that between your fingers, at what point are you thinking, okay, I'm increasing in length, or are you thinking I'm still doing a circle?
Okay, so we understand the history. Yeah, we've gone back 24 years.
I've gone back only 12, 13.
Let's talk about now. Do we still use circular, square, triangular in our terminology when we're teaching?
In our terminology, we try not to we focus on other things now, which we feel help the student to understand creating shape in a simpler way. So we tested this out on our staff at Ena before we started to change things within AllilON, and it was that which we spoke about previously, is focusing on the distance from the head to your cutting line, not just focusing on where you're cutting the hair, so the cutting line, if you like, and what the result of those lengths achieves when the hair sits at natural fall. That's our focus now. And
when you're describing it, would be in one section opposed to the whole thing? When you describe the lengths that you were just mentioning?
I would break it down, we would break it down into vertical lengths, horizontal lengths, diagonal lengths, and how the lengths are being distributed within the vertical, the horizontal and the diagonal. We wouldn't really talk about whether it's circular, square or triangle. We would say if the length is increasing from the starting position, decreasing or staying consistent. So
if you were to describe the first one, you would say that that was a consistent length throughout. Yeah? And the second one,
maybe it's like increase where the head, the neck bit
moved, yeah. And then the second one would be a gradual increase of length.
From this point.
From the nape,
to the front
so
hairline.
You would say, for example, from the nape to the occipital is a
consistent length.
Yeah, and then from there it's a gradual increase.
And that's obviously if you're using a vertical section, isn't it? It's still, I would say, the same if you're using horizontal sections, but you're just having to add the sections on top of each other.
And this, how would we describe this without using the words round, square and triangular?
So if it's a completed shape and the lengths are sitting in natural fall, I would say that from the centre back of the head, the lengths increase.
Horizontally?
Yeah, horizontal lengths increase from the centre back towards the front hairline on both sides. Vertically, we can't see.
We can't see what's going on.
Yeah.
But that will follow into what we can speak about next, which could be how the circle, the square and the triangle then got related to line graduation and length.
Yeah.
So shall we move forward into that next time?
Lots of subjects to cover really.
Yeah.
So just in summary, as a company, there's nothing wrong with using the terminology round, square and triangular, but it's something that we're moving away from and we're describing things more in lengths.
Well, because it's the length that initially is there that's being cut, which then creates the shape.
Yeah, like I wouldn't look at my client, for example, and think, oh, you look amazing with a square shape, or you look incredible with a triangular shape on you. I'd be thinking, okay, that length needs to sit there to look good or to sit well, and that length there, I want it to sit
Suitability,
there. So
yeah.
the dot to dot, if I,
Yeah.
how then do I distribute the lengths to maintain those lengths to sit where I want them to sit in natural form? That's what I was
Because we were
looking at.
finding
And
that
then,
when we were teaching students, when you just say to them, we're going to create something
A circle.
square, and they're like,
Like what? What's
no,
that?
but then
What?
no, but then you would come and do a consultation with someone, and they just go, "Yeah, I'm going to do a square shape."
Yeah,
And you're like, "What's that mean? What's that mean? Like, how? Explain that to me in detail. Where are you going to direct
Like
the
which
hair
bit?
to cut
The
it? How are
vertical
you going to
bit?
achieve it?
The horizontal bit?
Yeah, where the
The
length's
diagonal
going to
bit?
sit? What's the result of that? You know,
Are you
what's
talking about
the
your cutting
shape?
line? Are you talking about the finished result? Are you talking about your over direction, elevation?
So from our experience in the classroom and also from our experience teaching our staff, we found that we needed to give them more or a better way of thinking.
A better way of visualising what's actually happening in that one section.
Just something that they could. It wasn't like habits. Like, oh, well, I have to either choose circle, square,
Yeah.
or triangle,
Yeah.
because that's or a combination. I have to combine them, or I've got to do one singly, because
And
that's.
a lot of the times they didn't really understand what
Well,
it was anyway.
I would say the
They
common
just used
denominator
words.
was that I can't visualise what you mean.
Yeah.
I can't actually visualise it. You know, when you pull it out, when you pull the hair out, can you not visualise the triangle? What do you mean you can't?
Yeah, where are you going to direct the hair to achieve that circle, square, or triangular shape that you're telling me you want to achieve? But they couldn't explain that.
Mm.
That was the point it stopped at was, I'm going to create a circular shape, or I'm going to create a square shape. But they couldn't go any further into detail in that.
Okay, guys, so you can see that we love to debate. We love to talk about hair.
If anyone has any questions
Yeah.
regarding what we've just spoke about, or has any experiences, you know, that you feel relate to this subject,
Yeah, or if
share
there's
them.
anything within this subject that you want us to go through in more detail, you know, we'll be happy to debate it on future AllilON Raws. So thank you, Kate, Jonathan.
Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Pedros.
See you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.